feel funny when I start the show by waving at you, but I'm not entirely certain like what protocol is. It's Saturday night, it's Saturday Night Live. I've watched so many shows for so many years, and here I am. When I was on the radio, we didn't have cameras in the studio. I mean, we did, but we didn't use them. So here I am on my couch. I decided that I wanted to get a little more personal, so I wore like a hippie dress and one of my cool good juju necklaces, and I wanted you to see my home, a little more of my home. This is a couch. I'll move to side so you can see. I talked about it on my 3:30 today, that it is a patchwork. It was a couch that I bought a bunch of remnants of velvets, and it has like 5 or 6 different fabrics, and it's beautiful. And I love it. And it was very inexpensive. The piece of furniture behind me is from a thrift store, the lamps, everything around me. I'm what they call, I recycle, I upcycle. I find things and I polish them and paint them and make them beautiful. So rather than sit in front of a bookshelf, I thought, you know what, let them into my world a little more, let you into my world, because this is what's going on. I made a commitment to my, I don't want to call them fans. I just feel so peculiar calling you fans, or even, followers, or I guess on I don't even know what they call people on YouTube, subscribers. But you're none of this. You are people who have chosen to give me your time and your energy, and to focus on me on numerous occasions throughout the week. Many of you at 3:30 Pacific time on Facebook Live, and now on Saturday night, 8 o'clock here. So I want to talk about the news first. And when I talk about the news, I mean the news as a whole, not news stories. Last week, I actually covered some news stories. And here's what was interesting, is that I'm not sure that I made all the points that I wanted to make about the news stories, which is, and again, this situation is unique. Nothing like this has happened in over 100 years. So it's interesting to follow the news cycles, because people, I think, are literally running out of content. It's turning into sort of a recycling and not upcycling, a recycling of information. And when you run out of information, when you run out of facts and stats, when you run out of things that can be vetted, there's things that are true. They are absolutely objectively true. And the stories that I covered last week were objectively true. There were X amount of cases in a Smithfield meat processing, and this many people got sick, and this happened with the plant. And then I had editorial comment, which was that, to talk about the workers in the plant as if they were somehow to blame because they're willing to take, jobs where they're crammed in together and they live in small places, and many of them sometimes in tight quarters. Yeah. Who else works in a meat processing plant? A rich guy with a lot of room to roam and a pool in his backyard isn't going to say, you know what I'd like to do today? I'd like to cram nasty raw pieces of dead pig into a can. That seems like a party. I could just sit here and have the honeys around my pool, but what fun would that be? I'm saying this because I feel that more and more news stories, I call it information, but even if they're factual, here's what's interesting during this pandemic. You have to ask yourself, what are you doing with the information? And I'm saying this because I have a friend named Frankie, and he was a hairdresser back in the day in Fire Island. He claimed to swing out of both trees, but mostly get stuck in the bushes. And, and he was a party guy back in the 80s. And Frankie, when I was in my early 20s, I was so impressed with him because he was super quick-witted New York Fire Island guy, and he had frosted tipped hair. So he went by the name Frankie Frost. That was kind of his club hairdresser, Frankie Frost. And Frankie Frost had this very weird policy, which I've adopted, which was he never answered a direct question without asking the people, why are you asking? It's sort of like, Talmudic studies, where Jewish scholars are taught to answer a question with a question. So people would ask Frankie, like, what's your real name? You know, he'd be like, why do you want to know? You know, and he was at dinner at a young lady's house that he liked very much. And her father kept saying, and I honestly, I don't know his last name. And I don't even know what nationality he is. I assumed he was Italian because he had a lot of swag. And so, you know, this girl's father was like, what's your name? You know, what's your last name? Where do your people come from? And finally he just said, look, Dad, because that's the way he was, like, look, in the telling of the story, he would always say, you know, look, Daddy-o, I'm Frankie from No Money. I'm Frankie from No. Is that what you needed to know? You want to know my last name? It was Rothschild, Rockefeller. I'm Frankie from No Money. And I remember people would ask Frank questions and he would say, are you going to like me more or are you going to like me less? And I say this because when you listen to the news, a lot of people have become news junkies. And I'm like, why now? What are you going to find out? You know, this is the news. The news is there's a pandemic. The news is, these are facts, that this disease is transferred by droplets. The news is some people die faster than others. They're still figuring out why. Mostly the elderly and the immune deficient and the frail. All right. The news is that COVID has deeply affected the, you know, economy, because they don't talk about getting life back to normal. They say reopening the economy. Those are the words that the news stories use over and over and over and over, which to me is already politicizing it. You know, do you like money or do you not like money? Well, everybody likes money. You don't think I want to be back on stage? I literally don't know when I'm going to set foot on a stage again. Right now, can't tell you. I know when I'm booked. I know that I'm booked at the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas. Take note, the last week in June going into the 4th of July weekend. The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as we say, I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it, Vegas. Will it happen? I hope so. I hope so. I have some cruise ships booked in the Caribbean in July. I'm pretty sure that'll happen. You know, the cruise ships, and people are like, and you're going to get on the cruise ship? I most certainly am. I like money and I'm healthy and I'm going to stay healthy. And even before this happened, you know, the cruise ships are getting a super bad rap. But I've never in my life seen more Purell dispensers than on a Royal Caribbean. They're everywhere. You can't even walk into the dining room without washy-washy. They have a whole song, washy-washy. You have to Purell, and on the newer ships, the big ships, the Oasis class, there's actually, you have to go through a wash area. Everybody has to visibly wash their hands on their way into the dining room. Does that stop sneezing and people touching everything? Hello, that's a shopping mall. It's a shopping mall. You wash your hands. So, for the record, I do look at the news. My friend Jay Shapiro, and it's funny, I remember being on radio and my boss always saying, don't use first and last names. Like, who cares? He's my Facebook friend. But my friend Jay, he's been sending me, he's like super cruiser. He's been sending me everything on the sort of inside track of how the ships are changing and what's going to happen. I like that news. Why? It empowers me. It gives me something to look forward to. It makes me happy. See, information. I always say in my act, I would always talk about how I didn't date, I interviewed. This is one of my signature bits. I would say that when I was so bummed when she left radio. Yay, thank you, Brian. I shouldn't be looking at these in real time, but it popped up on the screen and it made me happy. We'll do a little bit of a chat afterwards because I'm still working with my producer, Stanton. I went from being an ITARD. It's a term I coined for myself. I'm not just like technophobic. I was full on ITARD. And now I find myself like embracing the fact that here we are. So, but Stanton's been guiding me. I'm doing my level best to, you know, do what he tells me so that we can connect. You know, I have in my act how I didn't date men. I would interview because I wanted a child. I very much wanted a child. I got married in my early 40s because I wanted a child. And a decision made in fear is a bad decision. End of story. So be mindful of the decisions you make during this pandemic. Be mindful of financial and long-term and things that you're going to have to live with for a long time during this pandemic, because a lot of people are acting out of fear. I'm not afraid at all. In fact, I could lie to you, but what's the point? We've gotten kind of close. I've never been happier. I'm going to get closer to you. Look into the camera there. I've never been happier in my whole life. I'm not sure where to look, but I'm figuring out because I'm doing it on an iPhone. I guess the camera's there. But I'll get to where I'm like all like sassy. I've never been happier. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you go into AA, which I have not, but I've gone with plenty of people, they say there's no recovery without humility. And unless you're, independently wealthy or you don't like other people, this circumstance has been humbling. It's been incredibly humbling. A lot of people are, I say we've become students of the University of Life, because we're gathering information. We're figuring stuff out. Everything's different. You do this website and then you have to do that website and you fill out this form, and there's nothing across the board. Now, the upside to that is you're in charge of you right now. You're in charge. The bad side is you're in charge of you right now. It's like when you go away to college. When you went away to college, I didn't go away to college, but I did go to junior college. And when you go to school, it's on you if you're going to study. It's on you if you're going to do the work. It's on you, the experience. But how wonderful that time in your life when you were molten, when you weren't fully formed, when you weren't hardened, when you weren't literally hardened, you weren't, cynical, or you very much felt like anything could happen. The reality is anything can happen. Could it get worse? Sure, of course. Of course it can. But could it get better? Absolutely. I actually coined a phrase today on my Facebook Live show. It just popped out of my mouth. I said, I've become pandolescent. I'm an adolescent again because I'm learning things. I'm taking myself to school. I always tell people that what keeps you from living a great life is a good life. If you're having a good life, decent, just getting the job done, you're probably not going to push. But right now, there's a lot of people getting their hustle on because the life they had, which was pretty good, is kind of bottomed out. But here's the exciting part. Ask yourself, as you gather information, whether it's you're calling, maybe you have a 401 at work and you're not sure how it works. You just started it years ago and never paid any attention. There's a lot of things that we do sort of on autopilot. Start a 401 or a savings, or do this, or get an annuity, and we don't understand the entirety. Now's the chance to learn. I'm learning technology. I called the management firm that has my 401. I've never done that. I asked questions. I filled stuff out online. I figured out the difference between an LLC and a sole proprietor and I know I'm an independent contractor. I didn't know that I was a sub S versus an LLC, but I'm learning and it's exciting. And every piece of information that goes into my mind should empower and excite me. Because when I was dating, I used to tell people I don't date, I interview, because I wanted a child. So I wasn't like all about the groove and the chemistry and if I like this guy. It was more like something along the lines of, are you divorced? How long? Do you have children? How many? What is your relationship to the children? Do they have special needs? Are they ADD, ADHD, wall-eyed, cross-eyed? My phone fell. Okay. Sorry, guys. I thought I had it totally clipped into its little doohickey. See? See how much I don't know? That's what you get for buying. Hang on, guys. I'll get this fixed. That's what you get for buying. Okay, we got this. I bought this at, are you seeing my midsection? This is, all right. I bought this at CVS. And evidently, it's just decided it doesn't want to work. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to lean the camera back at a weird angle. So sorry. Hang on, Stanton. This is actually going to work. Hang on. Because guess what? If this one's worn out, now you're going to get to see my whole house. If this one's worn out, it's because it's the same one I've been using. Here we are in my kitchen. You can see my kitchen. You see how I don't freak out? I just adapt. That's from being a comedian. There we are. Now I'm gonna, yeah, this is much better. Did you notice I didn't freak at all? Not even a little bit? Why? Because those are the times we're in. It's all good. Live TV. Thank you, Marcelino. And now you're back in front of my big bright light source. And I've got it all squared. Ta-da! See? Now I know that other, I bought these things at CVS for $9.99. Come on. When this is all over, I will get myself a proper everything. I'll get the one with the and the, you know, they have these very nice Bluetooth. You can make them happen from a distance. So, you know, I'll get one of those. It's more than a tripod. It's like it's a thing. So I'll get one of those when this is over. Okay, back to the information. See, I had two of them. And even that, because I'm like a Girl Scout, being a road comic, I've learned to be prepared. When I went into the CVS, knowing that I was going to start this show, there were two little $9.99 tripods with the rubbery legs left. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get both of them because I don't like leaving my house. And I promised myself at the beginning that I was not going to buy anything online. At the very beginning of this, March 17th, I got home, St. Patrick's Day. I got home from Australia, and I told myself, you know what? There's three things. I'll get myself centered again. See how I don't freak out? Got to get the little rubbery legs right. Okay. So I told myself, I'm not gonna gain any weight. I have not gained an ounce. I've actually lost a pound. I'm not going to shop online. Have not bought a single thing. I've bought groceries and these two camera stands. That's it. Tripods. They're not really tripods. They're like a grip with rubber legs. Tripods, like a proper thing. And I was not going to let the devil of despair get a hold of me. And so far, I've been true to my word. When I make myself a promise, I've made you a promise, I've made me a promise. I've kept that promise. Okay, so back to the interview. So I would just ask people on dates, you know, how do you feel about kids? That's a weird thing to ask somebody. I like them. I have some. I don't have some. You know, do you ever wear women's clothes? I was jokingly say in my act, of course I was exaggerating. In Monique's world, there's no good news or bad news. There's just the news. Tell me the truth and let me decide. Okay, so you like women's clothes. I'll hide the good stuff so you don't stretch it. Let's go. It was every joke in my act, every joke has an absolute origin in a reality that I've lived. Nothing is random. I really was interviewing baby daddies in early 2000s because that was so important to me. And here I am. No kids, no husband. A decision made in fear is a bad decision. I married a man in the summer of 03, and by Christmas of 03, I pretty much wanted to choke him out. And you have to, like the Garth Brooks song, thank God for unanswered prayers. I don't know what I would do if I was trapped in this house, with a husband that makes me mental, and maybe a child that, I was trying to entertain or homeschool or whatever it is people are doing with children now, while I tried not to kill my third husband. That would just be like a full-time, very difficult proposition. So the reason why I'm saying that is because the punchline of the joke was, in Monique's world, there's no good news or bad news. There's just the news. Tell me the truth and let me decide. Tell me the truth and let me decide. And you know what? That is harder and harder and harder to get to every day. For some reason, everybody's got to put spin and agenda. Everybody's got to politicize it or convince you to think what they think. And you know what? I don't want to think what you think. I want to know what happened and then figure out. I just keep wanting to show you my necklace. I want to think what I think. Here's what I know. I know that we have a lot of cases. The epicenter is New York. And these are just news stories that are being recycled. That, the president has said that reopening the economy is a state-by-state governor decision. I know that in Florida, for instance, they've opened parts of the state, but not Dade County, not Miami. I know that, in Texas, they've opened the state, but the restaurants are able to seat at half capacity. And they're saying, well, that's like nothing. That's not helping us at all. So, the news is as factual or not factual as it is, it can't change. For the foreseeable future, all we're going to hear about is who's sick, who's getting sick, why they're getting sick. Oh, they're old. They're in close quarters. There's bad ventilation. There's not wearing masks. How many different ways are there to say these things? Not many. And we're 6 weeks in, 6 weeks in. In fact, yesterday, Friday, here's news. I went to a grocery store. I went to Lawson's. And in Los Angeles, there's a chain of Whole Food stores that are like Whole Foods, but they're not Whole Foods. They're called Lawson's, and they're, I'm not doing a commercial for them. There's no reason why I need to, but I like them. They're less expensive, similar products, less of that. You know how Whole Foods has that attitude a little bit like the Mac store? With all due respect, and especially to Stanton, there's a certain attitude that, like, these are the big three: Whole Foods, Mac, people that work in Mac stores, Apple stores. I call it a Mac, but I think you call it an Apple. They work at the Apple store. They work at Whole Foods or shop at Whole Foods, and they drive Teslas. There's a certain breed of people. Any one of those three, you're cool. But if you're like really, you know what I'm talking about. I know you know. So, as I was saying, it's an attitude. So, I like Lawson's because it doesn't have that attitude. It's just straight on, semi-hippie, healthy food. I digressed. So I'm at the Lawson's, and I pull into the parking lot. It's off of Sunset, getting towards downtown in the Silver Lake neighborhood. It's a nice Lawson's. It's a big Lawson's in a neighborhood that's being gentrified. You can see it used to be like east of La Brea. It was like, ugh, and now you're just further. And I like that. There was a farmer's market. There was an actual blocked off street farmer's market. And there were young people shopping at the farmer's market with their own bags. Not everyone was wearing masks. Not everyone was social distancing. And I've never felt so old and so Mrs. Kravitz in my whole life. Now, if you don't know who Mrs. Kravitz is, you're probably under 45, or you don't watch TV Land or whatever it's on. I know that there's different channels that show old antenna TV or decades or whatever. Bewitched was an amazing show. with Elizabeth Montgomery. She played Bewitched and her evil cousin Sabrina with a black wig. I know that's like a spoiler for some of you, like, oh my God, she was Sabrina too. Yes, with a black wig. So on Bewitched, there was this old lady named Mrs. Kravitz. I want to say her first name was Gladys. And she spied on the whole neighborhood. She spent her whole life spying. So, of course, if you live next door to a witch and you're a spy, you're going to see her like, She used to do that, Bewitched. That's how she cast spells. I was always impressed that I could do it just like her. Because her little girl couldn't. Tabitha had to do her nose. She was too not coordinated enough. But when Bewitched did that, can you wiggle your nose? No, I cannot. So when Bewitched did that, that would cast a spell, and she would make people levitate or freeze or, and things would happen, and she'd have to call Dr. Bombay. And so I've become Mrs. Kravitz. I'm Mrs. Kravitz. I'm the one who's spying on all the kids in my building and the farmers market and the no mask wearing millennials, and the Gen Zers are the worst. They still use those scooters on the side of the road. Like, they're still touching things that are literally on the floor on the street. You don't know what homeless person walked by and sneezed on your little bird scooter. They don't care. And there's a part of me, it's a little bit hope springs eternal. Like, I remember when I was like that. I remember when I was, invincible or whatever. I was always persnickety. So actually washing my hands all the time is fine. My mother makes fun of me when I was a child. I would go outside and play a little bit, and I'd come in and wash my hands. Then I'd play and I'd wash my hands because I couldn't stand there to be too much buildup of schmutzy from the yard. I've always been a little bit of a neatnik. But what I'm getting at, what I really want you to think about is that you decide how the information that's coming at you during this time should empower you. If a story isn't designed to tell you something that is useful, I was glad to get news stories about discovering that it was droplets, or that when we speak, which we all assume. Remember when we were kids, say it, don't spray it. I want the news, not the weather. That was a big thing, Well, evidently, even when you're not spraying, like a kid I knew in second grade who was bad spitter, even if you are little tiny, okay, great. I get it. I get the 6 feet. I get the mask. I'm learning. I'm being empowered. I'm finding ways to stay safer. I get that. That's good news. It's very much like my super religious Christian friends. Have you heard the good news? In my world, it's all good news because it's information. Now, here's the part that's going to bake your noodle. I don't read, when I see headlines on my Apple News and it's like the president this, or, House Speaker, or, because evidently a news story was that, the Senate is coming back and they have offered them tests. And they both said, no, thank you. Speaker of the House, Pelosi and Mitch McConnell were like, no, give them to the front line. Even though a lot of people in politics are old and cancer survivors and blah, 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 blah. They're the wise old owls that have been through a lot. Whatever side of the aisle they're on, you got to respect that they got there and that they've done something, So, yeah, they're saying, nope, you're offering to test us, use it on other people. That didn't excite me. It made me wonder, is it one of those cases of I'd rather not know? I know a lot of people got their panties in a wad this week about Mike Pence walking around with no mask on. Well, I got to be honest with you. In my Mrs. Kravitz ways, if I was in the hospital or anywhere I was, if Mike Pence walked in without a mask, I'd walk out. I wouldn't just stand 6 feet away. I'd walk out. Because it's one thing if you're 22. If you're a grown-ass man with gray hair on your head, what would it kill you to put a mask on? And then there was a story that said how his wife explained why he didn't wear a mask. I don't care. There's no explanation for it. Zero reason why a grown-ass man in America during a pandemic can't wear a mask. Now, all of you who are maybe fans of Mike Trump are now going to get very upset with me and say, but you should have read the explanation. No, there is, I leave my house. I'm younger and healthier than Mike Pence with a mask on. As soon as I walk out my front door, I never know when a neighbor's going to step into the hall. My halls aren't 6 feet wide. It's common courtesy. It's basic decency for grown people. Now, can I expect basic decency from a 22-year-old? No. No. So I don't find that as upsetting in my Mrs. Kravitz ways. I don't find today 3 kids got out of my elevator. I had a mask on. 3 kids in their 20s who were clearly going out to do some Saturday fun stuff. Shorts, no masks on, standing close together in the elevator. The elevator even says, stand on the other side of the elevator. Nope. They all kind of piled out while I was standing there. Was I worried? No. So, news. Pick your news. Attitude. Have a great attitude. You can control that. I feel like I'm not eating ramen noodles yet, but I actually did buy, there was a spice. There's a brand, and the name is escaping me, and I'm not going to walk to my kitchen. But when I was younger and broke, I would buy their tabbouleh. It's a box. They're little small white boxes, and you can buy Spanish rice with spices mixed in. You can buy their falafel mix, and I think it's something Spice Company. But anyway, I bought some of that stuff. I bought even some mac and cheese. It's comfort food. It's stuff you eat when you're in college or when you're young or when you have a roommate or when you don't have a lot of money. And you know what? I'm fine. But there's something about getting in the spirit of the frugality, of the not wastefulness, even going a little bit deeper. You know, can we go a little bit deeper? So, you know, half the show has gone by already, and I haven't even gotten to the good stuff. Here's the good stuff. Some of you asked me last week, like, what my purpose was and what I cared about. And a couple things. Number one, I wanted to share with you that, and I'm the kind of person who looks everything up too. I wanted to share with you that I have different things around my house, which is why I'm glad you can see behind me, that are meaningful to me. They're not, nothing in my apartment is random. Not one single thing is random. And a few years ago, like 11, I was starting to get very serious about writing a funny book of stories, sort of a la David Sedaris. And this is not a funny thing, but it's auspicious. And I told myself, you know, that I was just going to sort of, I call it the voice, but sort of check in with my higher, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it God, the voice, higher power, whatever word works for you. I always say, if you don't like God, add an extra 0. Nobody has an extra O. Nobody has an issue with good, or extra zeros for that matter. So I sat down to write, and I have a binder, and I'll put this in front of there. Oh, there we go. You have to turn it around. And I wrote, and I slipped the piece of paper into the plastic. And this is the first one I printed, and I've had it 11 years. This is what I wanted to think. Who I was and what I've done is far less important than who I am and what I believe. Okay? Then the second thing was sort of a stream of consciousness, sort of the voice. Go blindly forward, in parentheses, for now. This is beyond your wildest dreams. And then the third chunk that came to me, push against nothing, and nothing was in capitals. Say thank you always. Be a reflection of me, meaning the good thing. Let things fall into place by my grace. So 11 years ago, I wrote this to start a book, which I'm going to finish now because I have time. And the reason why go blindly forward was interesting, and it's interesting now, and isn't it always interesting, is because, you know, my father had passed. My radio contract had non-renewed. I wasn't married. I was living in San Diego and my contract had expired. I was seeing someone, but I didn't know how it was going to go. And when I got the go blindly forward for now, it's because all of my life, since I was very little, I've always been one of those people, if people want to talk about The Secret or whatever it is, I imagined what I wanted. I would, when I was a little girl, if we had a kindergarten play, as soon as they posted, we're doing a kindergarten play. It was called The Little Gingerbread Man. And I don't even know why I tell you. I just get carried away. And as soon as the teacher posted on the wall that we were going to do a school play for graduation, I said, I want to be the star. I want to be in charge. And the person in charge was actually not the little gingerbread boy. It was the woman who baked him and loved him. That was me. And how the play went is that there were birds and puppies and kittens and all manner of animals. And I baked the little gingerbread boy and I loved him. And I decorated him with love, And he got up and escaped. He ran out. And I went around to all of the little animals in the forest and said, "Have you seen my little gingerbread boy? I love him." And then the bird would be like, "No, we have not seen him." And that's how the play went. Every little person got their part. They got to be a puppy or a kitten. I got to be the woman who baked the gingerbread boy. And then the gingerbread boy was a little boy named Raymond. And he didn't have any lines, but his gig was to hide, and to keep going around the forest and to elude me until he realized that I was looking for him, not to eat him, but because I had made him beautiful and I loved him and I wanted him back. And at the end, I'm reunited with my giant cookie child. But during the rehearsals, the other children, they're kindergartners. They're eating paste. They're picking their nose. Their mind's wandering. And this is such a Monique story. I basically kind of went over to the teacher, Mrs. Patterson, and I said, "I've got this. You can just, relax a minute." And I went around to each child and said, "No, if you're a kitten, you got to be different than the dog. You can't just be on all four and go like, meow. No, I haven't seen him. Like, be like a kitten, And I went around and directed each one of the children, including Raymond, because I said, "Raymond, when you come back, you can't just sashay back to me. We're going to have a big reunion. We have to hug. I baked you. We love each other." It's like, that's the payoff. And it was great. And I'm telling you this because my whole life, from kindergarten, if I was doing something, I was hyper focused on that thing being a success. And then it was the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Become a comedian, become a headliner, become a touring headliner, go to the Montreal Comedy Festival. I want to be on the radio. I want to do morning drive. And I did it step by step. I've never been the person who has said, like, I'm going to live in, the penthouse of the, I actually did do that. It's another story, but of the Hollywood Tower. But, I'm not the person who sits here and looks at you and says, "I want to be a best-selling author and sell 1 million copies of my book when it comes out." I'm not that person, because my goals are not reliant on other people. They're always reliant on me doing my best, on me getting the gig and doing my best. However people perceive them, which is probably why I'm not rich and famous or well known. However people see my work is on people. But my gig, when I tell people, when I think about my time with you, I don't think in terms of, this way, "Oh, I want to go viral. I want 1 million people." No, I think in terms of, is what I'm saying helpful and effective to, it's what we talk about, that power of one. Is it going to land on one person tonight, and they're going to think about a time in their life where they understood being open to possibility, to dwelling in anything could happen, to being excited, to not caring, about the underbelly of politics, only like, hey, it would be nice if people that I like, that I think are going to do a good job, were in charge for a while. in that naive way that you have when you're young. It's just like, this seems like the good team. I'm going to be on this team. I hope this team wins. But your life isn't devastated and destroyed to where you have to be hateful and mean-spirited if your team doesn't win. You know, I've had some presidents I voted for in office. I've had some presidents I didn't. It didn't stop me from being funny. It didn't keep food off my table. I didn't eat lunch with anybody. It's not like the president called me up, you know. There was a time when I thought Bill Clinton was kind of cute. I would have gone to lunch with him. But you get my point. My point is that, you know, you can decide step by step what to do. And when I read Go Blindly Forward for Now 11 years ago, because it just kind of came out stream of consciousness, it meant that for the first time in my life, I didn't have a next thing. I didn't. It wasn't, I'm going to finish this book, and I didn't, and I haven't. It was get started. I did do that. Start writing. Put it in some order. I did do that. I absolutely did. And the process of writing actually opened my brain to other forms of creativity. My comedy got better. I got 3 Showtime specials. See, it's the old, you know, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I always tell people, you may start as a writer, an assistant director, an animator. Whatever it is that you're doing may not be your final gig, but the devil loves stasis. Just start something. Take one step. Don't think in terms of how it will be received. Think in terms of how good you're going to feel that you birthed it, that you did that you dwelled in the possibility, that you were like, hey, somebody might like this. I would be dead in the water if every time I recorded something or, you know, or performed, or if I stood on stage and I was double tracking thinking, are they liking it? Are they liking it? Are they liking it? That's not what I do. I write material that I believe in, and I deliver it with all my heart and soul. And most of the time, you guys like it. And you let me know that. And it keeps me going. Because I genuinely understand, and I believe this, when you are a good steward of things, the universe gives you more. God, whatever you want to call it. When you are a good steward of your time, when you are a good steward of, you know, I told a gentleman today, he sent me a beautiful message via, you know, YouTube message. And I said, you know, it's not about having everybody. It's about having the right people. The people that take the time. And every single one of you right now, it is absolutely the power of one. One person, you know, can make an enormous difference. People put up tutorials to show other people how to do things. You don't even know how many people I've looked at tutorials in the last few weeks just to figure out, I've got to learn how to Zoom by tomorrow night. I have a Zoom show. I'll post the flyer. I haven't posted the flyer yet because I don't want to post the flyer till I know how to Zoom. I'm sure it'll be fine. I think about you guys, and when I say that, it's a collective you, but it's really not a collective. It's not, you know, like this. It's like this. I like your crowd work, Monique. Hi, Christian. Christian's on at 3:30. He's always with me at 3:30 in the afternoon. And it is crowd work, and I'll tell you why. When I'm on, if anybody's seen me live, people say, "What's your material about? What are you going to talk about?" Like even tonight, you know, what are I have stories. I have a couple more things I want to share with you. When I decide to start talking, it's a meal. I've invited you, and you've allowed me to invite you. Or maybe you've invited me into your home. But it's like a cocktail party. It's a conversation. It's a salon. It's you know, we're F. Scott Fitzgerald. and and Alice B. Toklas and Gertrude Stein, or we're a group, we're a gang, we're a salon, we're exchanging ideas because I read everything you guys send me, and I'm excited about it. And when this exchange is happening, when people say, "What's your material? What's the room? Do you know what your menu is going to be when you're going to have a party a year out?" No, you decide. I'm having a summer wedding outside in oh well, that's a summer wedding in June outside. That's barbecue and finger food and cold sandwiches, little pieces of cucumber, whatever it is. That's what you guys are. You're just like Ernest Hemingway said that Paris was the movable feast. You guys are the comedic feast. When you're in front of me, we're creating something together. You're participating. You look a certain way. You laugh a certain way. You're engaging me energetic, saying, "Yeah, do it, bring it, talk to me. I'll participate." And that's what we do. We make something together. We're making something together right now. I'm talking to you, but I'm not talking at you. I'm speaking from my heart. Because when this show is over, I want you to be able to sit back and say, "Yeah, maybe what's going on in the Smithfield ham plant isn't that big of a deal in my life. If I don't get ham till the pandemic's over, is that really going to be a problem?" I think maybe your heart will be like, "Woo, 90 days and no ham? Hallelujah." Maybe that's a good thing. I haven't eaten meat in 10 years, except fish. I'm a pescatarian. I know that's so almost like Mac Store, Tesla, Whole Foods. Pescatarian. All I need is Lululemon, and then I'll be the most annoying person on YouTube right now. I don't drive a Tesla, but I would if I could. So I'm going to read you when I actually started the book. I'm going to stick the landing with reading you what I've learned. I charge my Tesla at Whole Foods. I will too. Actually, to be perfectly honest, a lot of you know that I've been a super BMW chick for a million years. I've driven a BMW since 1997. Since 1997. It's a long time to be driving the same brand. It's because they're indestructible. And I'm not rich enough to have an i8, which is their electric car. And I may say a curse word now that'll make you laugh. I tried an i3. They let me test cars because I did endorsements. So I had this little cute i3, which is like a soccer mom car because it doesn't go very far on a charge and it only has 1 gallon of gas. I mean, it's like for soccer mom commuter kind of Whole Food Mac store, pick up the kids kind of thing. And but I had to set up an account so that I could charge. You had to set up a charging account, and you have to have a name and a password. So my ID was "This car sucks balls" with a Z, and it was taken. I had to be "This car sucks balls" too. I'm assuming that was some husband whose wife made him get that car who really didn't want it. But I digress, and here I've digressed and been nasty. Shame on me. So here is what I want to share with you. Stick the landing, and then we'll have a little chat. When I started writing my book, I wanted to be nakedly honest. And I think as I go forward and we keep doing these Saturday nights and I really dig deep into the editing process, you'll let me know and I won't be offended. But I think I might share little snippets of it, not a whole chapter. This isn't going to be like a book reading. So here goes. What I've learned. I wanted to sit down from a framework of, and I started this 10 years ago. This was 2010. I sat down and typed the stream of consciousness, like no cross outs, nothing. I actually hand wrote it and then I typed it. I've showed you guys pictures of my journal before. I am grateful to the city of San Diego for housing me during my transformation. I continued to transform, but this was 10 years ago. I am grateful to the city of San Diego for housing me during my transformation 10 years ago. That was in 2000 when I was dating Dog of Satan. I came here in a state of desperation, fleeing something, trying to outrun a failed marriage and a belief I could never be truly loved. Or maybe it was the belief I could only be loved by people with equal parts love and damage neediness. Equal parts love and damage neediness. I had the worst man picker. Either way, I was not moving to paradise with my soulmate to begin a new life at the dawning of a new millennium. That was just a bill of goods I sold myself. Dog of Satan was a liar pants. He was separated, but his wife was not in on said separation. It got real ugly real fast. I came here to do something huge. I didn't know that, or that it would take a decade to complete the task. Hello, almost 2 decades. I am putting the finishing touches on it now. Now that happens to be true. Here's what I've learned. Finally got to it. Here's what I've learned. Nobody saves or changes anyone. Sometimes you get lucky and show up at the exact right time to witness it. Be a cheerleader. Did you guys hear that? Did you hear it? Because the older I get, the truer. Man, I'm going to read that one again. Nobody saves or changes anyone. They have to want it. Sometimes you get lucky and show up at the exact right moment to witness it. Be a cheerleader. It is condescending to believe you know more than another adult about their life. Let that sink in. And should even try to change them. Yes, this includes most raging substance abusers. And I put in parentheses, I am a magnet for politically conservative alcoholics that live lives of quiet desperation. That and closet homosexuals. All you can do is lead by example. Such bad news, I know. That's it. That's all you can do is lead by example. You can't tell anyone to do anything. You have to be it. It's like Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. This one's the one that's really going to bake your noodle. Love, by definition, is unconditional. If you are withholding approval, support, or affection contingent on anything your mate, friend, or family member does, ask yourself, what is really going on and why is it messing with your agenda? Which leads right into children are to be loved, not lived for or through. And you should do your level best to have children with people you love so much that even if you find out you can't, in other words, you can't have kids, you married somebody, you can't have kids. And I learned this one straight up the hard way. Even if you find out you can't, your mate's presence is consolation enough, and you're sustained by looking forward to a future with just them. How many people could look forward to just their mate? Like, if nothing changes, we don't have kids, we don't make more money, we don't get better jobs, my love and respect for you, our relationship sustains me. It's all I need. Anything else above what we have right now, day one, is gravy. Think about that. This one's going to kill you. Life is not fair. I'm going to tell you why. Because love and talent have no seniority. Chew on this a second. However, it is just. Life is not fair because love and talent have no seniority. However, it is just. You will get out what you put in and more. And I know this from personal experience. Life is absolutely just. There is justice. It is unkind and probably unchristian to have expectations of other people when it pertains to your needs, wants, and preferences. Ask politely a couple of times. After that, it is on you how to handle these things to make sure you're fulfilled. A lot of people don't like that one. Everyone, this is, if I may say so myself, this is a good one. Everyone has a story they tell themselves to explain why they are not who they could be. Proofread only your own. My parents, and probably yours, did the best their psychology, cosmology, and mythology would allow. When you lose one, it hurts like hell, even a challenging one, especially a challenging one. This one I know from personal experience. You will never take the pounds off until you take the weight off. And I say that because they're two different things. Weight is emotional and psychological. I always say, show me an overweight woman, I'll show you a guilty woman, a woman who doesn't take time for herself, who doesn't think she's important enough to plan meals for, who doesn't think that she can carve out 30 minutes to go for a walk. I'm going to repeat that one because I think after this pandemic, a lot of people are going to have a weight and pound problem. You will never take the pounds off until you take the weight off. This one, I mean, think about how timely these are. Things never go back, but I was blind then, blind now. Things never go back to the way they were, the good old days or normal. They never go back, period. They're not supposed to. Keep moving forward no matter how slow the speed. This one's really, it's us, baby. The best relationships are totally symbiotic. Sometimes you're Helen Keller and sometimes you're Annie Sullivan. It doesn't matter. Commit to being useful. This one's karma is pitiless and everything is an answer to a prayer. Every challenge that you've ever faced in your life, and this isn't, I'm reading this, but I have to go off script a little. Everything that's happening in your life is an answer to a prayer. The key to life is to remember what you may have prayed, what awaits you on the other side of that challenge. I started the whole show with this one. A decision made in fear is a bad decision. There is a difference between thoughtful cautiousness born of good conventional upbringing. I did not have the benefit of this. And trying to preempt terror. I did a lot of this. There is such a thing as back-ass words. It is common, real, and how I live most of my life. And then P.S. I've learned a lot of other things in my many, many years at the Y. Get it? Why? However, these were the hardest lessons and include tons of hilarious hand-wringing, banging of the head, and finally walking through invisible walls of not good enough. That's what I've learned. And you know what? It's true. It was true then. It's true now. I think it'll be true in 10 more years. Because more than ever before, we're going blindly forward. And we can make things happen. We have to decide. We have to decide what to take into our brains and our thoughts and our hearts and our souls that are going to empower us. You didn't go to college to learn how to smoke weed and avoid the clap. Those things may have happened. You went to learn. You went to make lifelong friends. You went to make inroads into a profession. You went because you thought that when you were done and you had the diploma that you could start a meaningful thing. This is the university of life right now. This is a learning experience like no other. Unprecedented. We are pandolescent now. So I hope some of this was of use to you. I'm going to reread my favorite one for you guys because it's how I feel about you. The best relationships are totally symbiotic. Sometimes you're Helen Keller. Sometimes you're Annie Sullivan. It really doesn't matter. Commit to being useful. And before I sign off, I'll tell you a little bit, just in case you're young, and you can Wikipedia it, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest. Helen Keller was a very famous inspirational speaker long before there were, people on circuit. She was in the first half of the 20th century. She was born, back in the day, they called it dumb, that's mute. She was mute because she was born blind and deaf. And they hired a teacher. There's plays and movies called The Miracle Worker, very famous movie. I believe that Patty Duke was nominated for the Oscar for playing Annie Sullivan. I could be wrong, though. This is stuff that happened when I was a little girl. But what actually happened was that Annie Sullivan was doing in her hand, signing in her hand, because, Helen was unable to even sight, lip read or do signals. So she took her to the pump. She was like a wild animal. You know, just running around the house with her hair all matted, but Annie changed that and did the best she could. But there's that breakthrough. There was that moment at the pump when she did this, and Helen equated this equals water. And once she equated, and she finally equated, this is water, then she ran around. She barely slept. Everything she touched, Annie would spell. That's a box. This is a this. This is a that. This is Monique's tripod that kept breaking. And that's what we are. We're each other's, you know, spiritual seeing eye. We're there for each other. I will be here every Saturday night, and some days I will spell water into your hand, and some days you will spell water into mine. It doesn't matter. We're committed. Love hard, forgive harder, and get as happy as you can, as fast as you can. I'll see you next Saturday. I'll see if I can do the chat on my other phone, okay? If you guys have any questions. Or if anything pops up, or if not, okay. Spread the good word. She is sharing here with us from the heart. Good old times. Thank you. Thank you for that. That did pop up. I was able to see it. I will do my level best, like I say, to, if anything pops up that you want to ask me, but if not, we'll just call it a night. Oh, you're just giving me love. Thank you. And I know who you are, by the way. Love you. Love you back. I was supposed to go to college. I think we kind of all are in college right now. We're all learning all kinds of new things and side hustles. We all have the story we tell ourselves. You like that one, Christian? Isn't that great? I love that one myself. Proofread only your own. Everyone has a story they tell themselves to explain why they're not who they're supposed to be. Amen, Monique. Don't change anyone. No, you can't. You can't. You know what? I don't know how to, I like your new living room set. Yeah, it's my couch. I'm going to ask Stanton if you're able to post, if I email him what I've learned, if there's some place we can put it on a graphic in YouTube so that you guys can see it. You know, you'll have it for whatever it's worth. I'd love to share it with you. So I'm going to, I'll answer any, you know, you guys make comments and I respond throughout the week. So I'm going to sign off now. I'm going to let Stanton handle that. And I'm going to thank you in advance for all the lovely, wonderful things that we're going to share between now and next Saturday night. So good night, guys.